Hi everyone, it's Jen with Stamp Silly. Today I'm going to share with you these cute little Valentine's treat boxes. These are created using the Pyramid Pals Thinlits dies. And really these go together so fast and simple. We're basically going to use just the main portion of this die set, the pyramid box itself, but it comes with all of these great little dies that you can create fun creatures with also, such as this little cow that I made a couple of weeks ago. I showed this to my daughter Aubrey and she fell head over heels for it. She said that this is what she wanted to give for her Valentine's treats at school. However, once they're put together, they are really hard to open back up, and you know, that would be a shame if we sent home these adorable treats with our kids or with her classmates and they wrecked it before they even got home. So I came up with a way to make these where they won't be so hard to open for the kids and they won't get wrecked, so that the moms can see the cute little Valentines that they got. This one here is like a spinning top, and it is held together simply by the ribbon loop on the top. And all you have to do to open it is flip it open, pop that ribbon out of the hole, and then open up the other side, and that's it. And there should be a treat in there, but you know what? I have 3 kids at home. We hardly ever keep a treat where it's supposed to be. So I'm sure one of the kids snagged that out of there. Anyway, you just pull that ribbon right back through that hole and it's closed again. This one is fun also. It holds a sucker, and this will be the style that I probably create for Aubrey's class because she wants the critters, and I can use the sucker coming through the top somehow. So this one I just adhered with some glue dots, and the sucker fits right in there perfectly. And again, then the glue dots will snap back together somewhat. They won't wreck it completely. So, okay, let's get after this. I'm using half of a sheet of rose red cardstock. So half a sheet, and you will be able to cut one pyramid out of half of a sheet. So you're just going to flip the die over like that and run it through 2 passes through your Big Shot. So here I've got the die on top of my cutting plate, and add that other cutting plate and it cuts the first one, and then just turn your die around and add your cutting plate, and you're going to go ahead and run that through again, and then you'll have your second triangle set die cut. Okay, so we'll get the rest of the stuff out of our way and keep moving on here. So now I've got these 2 triangle sets, I don't know what else to call them, pieces, and as you cut them it scores this line for you. Well, that line there is the trick here. We're going to take scissors and we're going to disassemble this by simply cutting along that score line right up to the notch there. So you're cutting that triangle right off. You'll end up with 2 flaps on the sides, like you would otherwise. We're going to cut the other triangle off of this piece, and again you end up with the same thing. So you'll have 2 triangles, and then the triangles with the flaps. And we're going to go ahead and stamp this. I'm using the set that came in the January Paper Pumpkin kit. I don't have a lot of Valentine's set, and this one actually works really well with these pyramids. So we're going to use that, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp this with some Versamark. We're going to heat emboss this in white embossing powder. Before I stamp though, I do need to treat my paper with the embossing buddy. So I don't want to end up, it's winter here in Iowa and static cling is everywhere, so I don't want to end up with embossing powder where I do not want it. And so just rub that embossing buddy over your project and then do your stamping. You'll be much happier in the end. So I'm going to stamp both of these pieces and then add my embossing powder. The Versamark ink is sticky and it doesn't dry very fast, so you've got a little bit of time before you need to add your embossing powder before the ink is dry. So go ahead and close up your Versamark. You'll see why here. There's why, because you might spill embossing powder, and that would be bad if it was in your ink pad. I happen to spill it everywhere for some reason. So anyway, I'll just clean that up real quickly here. That's part of the reason I like using a container to hold my embossing powder, is because then if I make a mess, I can just clean it back up right into the container. I'll put the embossing powder on this other piece and then clean up my mess on my desk and heat emboss those. So once they're heat embossed, then I'm going to do a little more stamping. I've got my rose red ink pad, and from that same stamp set that came in the paper pumpkin, I'm using this little mini chevron, and I'm just going to stamp that randomly on my project. I realize as I'm stamping this that those little mini chevrons, they might make a couple summer debuts also. I might steal those because to me they look like baseball threads. So I'm thinking on some white cardstock with some red ink, I've got myself a baseball design. Okay, so I've got that stamped, and then I'm going to use from that same stamp set this little mini heart that's just the heart outline. We're going to stamp that a couple of times on these triangles also. And you know what, I could have probably skipped this, but I just felt like I had this blank space up there. So I'm just filling it in with a couple of those hearts. Again, you could skip this, or you could jazz it up even more. You could use some Wink of Stella on the inside of those hearts and make them sparkly, which I may do still. I don't know. Who knows? I've got a lot of these to make, so we'll be creating for a while. Now we'll do some stamping on those other triangle pieces. I want to be sure to include the to from, so that my kids can write their names and who they are gifting their Valentines to. So we'll add that in there, and then I'll use that same heart image and randomly stamp that on these other triangles. So a couple times on this one, and then I'll stamp it on the other one to fill it in. Okay. Now we're about ready to assemble, so I'm going to use some tear and tape. This stuff is wonderful, by the way. So I'm just going to stick it on those flaps, those 4 flaps there, and then just tear it off. And I'll do that on all 4 of those. If you wanted to be more precise, you could use a scissors, but I figured that is why it's tear and tape. We're supposed to tear it. And if your ends are a little bit ragged, it's not going to matter because they'll be all on the inside of the project. You'll never see that at all. So we'll add that there. So once I have all 4 sides covered, then I'm going to pull up one of those release papers, and it doesn't matter where you start. You just will do this in an every other fashion. So I'm just now adding the triangle. Make sure that the points, the steep points, all end up at the same place. So you want all of those to meet at the top. So now I'll add this one in here. Again, it's going every other one, so you're doing one with flaps, one plain triangle, and then one with flaps, and then lastly we'll add that one plain triangle in that last position there. So pull the release paper off and then add that triangle in there. Okay, once we have the triangle in there, then what we need to do is fold up all those score lines. When you die cut this pyramid, the score lines come in there automatically. So I just go through and press on all those score lines, give them a little heads up. And before I adhere that last triangle though, I want to make sure that I fold up those score lines on the bottom flaps also. So then now I can remove that release paper and adhere that last side, and that's when it really becomes a pyramid. So I also, to get this to stick really, really good, I go ahead and put my finger inside and press that really well so that it's sure not to come apart. Okay, then you fold your flaps closed. Here I realize that I've got some stamping that ended up where I probably didn't want it because it's on the top. And so to fix that, I'm just going to go back and add that chevron and complete the stamping to make it look like it was intended. It's an easy way to fix something that I really kind of messed up. So I'll add that in. I also added a couple of those outline hearts in there too. Looks much better. Okay, now we need to put our hole in the top for our ribbon to feed through. For that, I'm just using the 1/8 inch punch. I'm going to try and center this as best as I can in the center of that square. If it's not perfect, it's not going to be that big of a deal. Then close it back up and use a pencil to mark where that hole is. This way you'll be sure that when you punch the inside hole that the holes line up. So go ahead and give that a good punch, and then when you close it, hopefully those holes line up like they should. They do. Okay, perfect. Now we just need a piece of ribbon, and this is just some white cotton ribbon, and it is, let's see here, it's about 6 inches long, I believe. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yes, 6 inches long, and we're just going to tie a knot in the end. We want the knot to be as close to the end without the loop as we possibly can. So if you want to make this a little bit longer, you can do that, but the key there is just to pull that knot as far and tight as you can to the one end. So I'm pulling real strong, and then I'm going to take the corner of the ribbon and feed that through the bottom hole that I punched earlier. Okay, so just feeding that up from the inside, and you may want to use a tweezers to help you pull that through, depending on how difficult it is for you to do. You could also punch that hole a little bit bigger. You could maybe use a 1/4 inch hole punch, but then you just want to be sure that your knot is big enough to hold it. Okay, so now just pull that through the top hole, and it will automatically close as you pull it tight. I just think that is adorable. Love it. Okay, we are going to add a little more pizzazz to this. I'm just going to grab my Love Blossoms Designer Series paper stack. This is full of some great patterns. I love it that it's not just for Valentine's. You've got some good florals in here. There are some hearts and there's some hearts, but you know what? For the most part, I think this paper stack will last throughout the year, so you can use it on a lot of good spring crafting. Now I'm just going to punch a heart with the full heart punch, and we're going to attach that with some Stampin' Dimensionals. So I'll put some Stampin' Dimensionals on the back of it. I'm going to use probably 3 here because I want it to stick really well, but I'm also going to add in a nest of silver metallic thread. So I'm just going to grab that and pull it off the spool, and then to create the messy nest, I think you guys have all seen how this is done. There's no perfect way to it because it's a messy nest. I just wrap it around my fingers as many times as I can, and then plop it right onto those Stampin' Dimensionals, and if there's any ends that are hanging off, I just work those around and stick those into the Stampin' Dimensionals also, and then stick it right to my project, and you've got this little mess of a nest. So anyway, I think these little I'm going to call them spinning tops. I think they're cute. I think hanging on a tree, a little Valentine's tree, they'd be adorable. Okay, so here's our next one, and I've used the Going Places pattern. I love the arrows in that pattern paper. So those were from Going Places. Same thing here. I've gone ahead and done the stamping, and I'm going to cut along that score line. Same as I did for the first one. And we'll do that to both of them. And then we can add our tear and tape and assemble these just like we did the first one. So there's nothing different here. I'm going to assemble this all the way. And once that's done, you don't need to punch a hole in the bottom because it's just going to get glued shut with the glue dot like we did, or like we will do. So now I just need to cut a hole in the top. I don't need a very big hole, but this is where my sucker is going to go through. So I just snipped the very top of that off, and my Jolly Rancher sucker will fit right through there. So I'll just feed that handle up through there, tuck it in, and we'll adhere that shut with a glue dot. Okay, so that's it. And you know, really just one glue dot is probably enough. Too many and the little kids will have a hard time with that. Maybe you aren't giving these to kids, it doesn't matter. These would be cute on coworkers' desks also. Just a little something to show them you care. And then I'm just going to add the hearts with the Stampin' Dimensionals. And that's basically it. These are super easy to put together, and they're cute and they're fun, and who wouldn't like one? They open easy. See? Compared to my little cow, these are going to open much easier. You see how that is? It's actually hard to try and get apart because it is stuck on two sides. So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If so, give me a thumbs up and be sure to come back for more.